anticipated or unanticipated announcements of monetary policy, I think it's good to relate to what this means at a very everyday life level. So I was reading an article a couple days ago about prices in the travel industry. So apparently, airline tickets have increased in price in the last few days. Prices for hotels, accommodations have also started to rise. And why is that? Because evidently, people in the travel industry already anticipate an increase in demand for the end of the year, even for the summer, right? So if I'm a consumer and I see this trend of prices going up. When the summer gets here or the end of the year gets here and I purchase a ticket or I pay for accommodations and prices are high, that will not be a surprise for me because I was already planning for that, right? Now, if summer comes or December comes, the end of the year, and even though I anticipated prices to be higher, they are not. So here comes the summer or the end of the year, and prices are really low, contrary to what I have anticipated. That's a surprise, right? And that, in fact, is good news for me. What am I likely to do if what I anticipated, the higher prices, did not materialize? Well, most likely, instead of buying accommodations for 2 days, maybe I buy accommodations for a week because I had already prepared for higher prices and they did not arrive. So maybe instead of taking a trip to Mexico, I take a trip to Europe because airline tickets are not as expensive as I thought they would be. And I was prepared to pay for higher prices. So this surprise has an effect on my behavior, on what I do. And I think that's how I can relate to these anticipated, unanticipated announcements of monetary policy. And by the way, beyond the class, beyond the models and the graphs, it's important for us to understand and to recognize how economic agents do form their expectations rationally and are forward-looking. Airlines, hotels, they already see a surge in demand for the summer and December. They are looking forward. They anticipate that to happen. And they are already raising prices. So it is reasonable, this idea of forward-looking rational expectations, it is reasonable. And I can see that. I can see how economic agents do prepare for the future and take actions today in preparation for what is coming. So let me continue with this discussion of anticipating what is coming and preparing for what is coming while discussing the issue of credibility, the central bank's credibility. So we learned at the beginning of the semester about central bank independence. And we learned why that is important for policy making. Well, beyond a central bank's independence, credibility is also key to implement monetary policy. And of course, the more independent a central bank is, the more credible it is. So how do I go about illustrating the importance of credibility and how individuals adjust their behavior according to what they see coming in the future? So this is real GDP. This is price. This is potential GDP, aggregate demand, and aggregate supply. Okay. So everything begins in equilibrium again at a level of Y0 is 0. Okay. So now consider this. The Fed makes statements, takes actions that suggest there will be an increase in the money supply. Okay, so the Fed is behaving as if money supply will increase. Okay, so let's show that on the graph. So the Fed is sending signals suggesting an increase in the money supply, and hence an increase in aggregate demand. What kind of signals? Statements. You know how the Fed and the chairman of the Fed, every so often they give interviews, they talk to the news, they make statements, they release statements, announcements. So suppose all those actions suggest an increase in the money supply and hence an increase in aggregate demand. Now, given that individuals look to the future and we adjust our behavior for what is coming, suppose we demand the higher wages, anticipating a price increase from everything the Fed has been doing. So we demand our higher wages, look into the future, and we receive those higher wages, suppose. Even if it is in the medium run, not immediately, but eventually we get the higher wage. All right. Now, this is the key. Suppose the Fed makes the announcement, and the announcement is a cut in the money supply. First, we were not anticipating that. We were anticipating something else, right? And that something else, second, is exactly the opposite to what the Fed was signaling. So what happens in this economy if the Fed does that? Well, the decrease in the money supply means aggregate demand is decreasing. Aggregate demand is in fact shifting to the left. So where's the final equilibrium? Well, we already made our preparations, right? We were already looking for higher prices. Hence, we demanded the higher wages, and we got the higher wages. So we are on this aggregate supply curve. And the Fed, instead of doing what they said they would do, they went the opposite way. So the final equilibrium would be here, number 2. What does that do? And I want to focus on output and unemployment. What does that do to output? That is a drop in output. And what is the consequence of that on unemployment? Higher unemployment. And guess what the Fed has accomplished? The Fed has taken the economy into a slowdown, into a recession. So the Fed made us believe that there would be more money in the economy. Interest rates would be lower. Prices would be higher, but we got our wage increase. So we were looking forward to that additional money in the economy, right? But then they make the announcement and they go exactly the opposite way, cutting the money supply. And what is the result of that? Lower output and higher unemployment. So what is the lesson of this? It is important for the central bank, the Federal Reserve, to be consistent with when making monetary policy announcements with what they have been signaling. If they have been sending the signal that the money supply will increase, when they actually implement the policy, they should do that. Because if they go the other way, the consequences for the economy are not very good. Hence, if you notice when the chairman of the Fed speaks, he speaks very carefully. When they release announcements, statements, they are very careful with what they say, because what they say contributes to individuals, economic agents, to form their expectations and to adjust to what they think is coming in the future. And that is important. This is the importance of credibility and being consistent with what they do and what they say when it comes to monetary policy.